All right, thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the Sales Game Changers podcast. My name is Fred Diamond. I'm the president of the Institute for Effective Professional Selling, and this is a special episode of the Sales Game Changers podcast. Every year, the Institute for Effective Professional Selling holds a big award event. We just held our 15th annual award event in early May. We're doing today's recording in June of 2025. And every year, the highlight of the award event is our Lifetime Achievement Award. And I'm very excited. Today we have, with a return appearance, our 2017, Paul, our 2017 Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, Paul Smith. Paul, you were leading Red Hat at the time, and you've gone on to some other interesting things. You're still doing some consulting, spending a lot of time down at the beach, which is good for you. I should say the shore.
The shore.
Those of us
For
who are
sure.
from the Philly, Jersey area, I want to remind people you can read every Sales Game Changers podcast episode and listen to all the shows. Go to salesgamechangerspodcast.com. Today, when you go there, search Paul Smith, and you'll find the episodes, including this one today. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. Now, Paul, the reason I asked you, first of all, we do a lot of work with our Lifetime Achievement recipients. We've been very blessed to have some of it's like a Hall of Fame, like a Mount Rushmore of sales leaders. And it's an interesting time. Sales is always a challenge, hence why we have the Institute for Effective Professional Selling. But there's been a lot of things happening, and specifically in the public sector market, specifically federal, over the last couple of months that have made it even more challenging to be successful. And again, we're doing today's interview. We're entering the end of the federal fiscal year. There's been a lot of challenges with DOGE and with RIFs and cutbacks and people choosing to leave the government. And it's been trickier than it has been in the past. So I want to talk to you. I just want to get your advice. You know, a lot of our listeners for the Sales Game Changers podcast are in the B2B segment. They're also, of course, B2G a lot, and a lot of business owners, but a lot B2G. So first off, so we're going to be talking about some of your advice, and you're always good at that. You know, I remember the first time I interviewed you, were so many ideas, and you've mentored so many people along the way, and you've been such a help to the Institute for Effective Professional Selling over the years. I'm really interested in some of your ideas. First off, for people who don't know you, give them a brief intro, and then let's just start talking about what they should be doing.
Thanks, Fred. Good to see you again, and good to be back on the podcast. So, just for a little backgrounder, I spent the majority of the latter part of my career, 17 years, as the GM for Red Hat's public sector business unit. I've served on a couple of boards, including Amita Technologies, that's run for the last 11 years by Peter Levin, the CEO and founder, who prior to that was the CTO at the VA. So a very august group of folks in that company and on their board. And I do some consulting right now. Most recently, I spent some time as the CEO for Rancher Government Solutions. For about 18 months, I was an interim CEO over there as they were going through some change management with a bunch of friends of mine from the parent company, SUSE, running their American subsidiary. So I had a lot of fun over there, but returned to the quote unquote retired life, where I'm actively involved with some companies right now and enjoying grandkids, golf, and the boat. But I'm keeping my toe in the pond, so to speak. And while I don't have an operational role right now, I still talk to a lot of friends around the Beltway, and for sure, everything that's going on in DOGE right now is real. There's not a single person I've talked to that on the government side or on the business side, software companies, hardware companies, that hasn't felt some type of impact. And look, for companies like I worked for many years that run in 90-day cycles, that is a real thing because it has had some direct impact, I believe, to short-term revenue. But as they say in some Bible passages, this too shall pass. I do believe over time, dust will settle and things will get back to what we're more accustomed to. The government will continue to operate. The government will continue to rely on industry to provide crucial technology to meet mission. So without a doubt, very tough times for both industry and for government. And let's remember, it's been tough on our government friends and associates as well, because they are all looking at their very long careers in the government and trying to figure out what's next. And yeah, lots of disruption right now in terms of daily work life workflow.
So let's get started. So what will be your let's just go through a list here. What will be your top recommendation to selling professionals, again, selling to, the government agencies?
Well, the last 5 years have been kind of crazy too, because we started in 2020 with COVID pandemic,
Yes.
uh, remote work and that whole type of work-life balance, not only for industry but for government. People just weren't in their offices that much, and I would say for me, this is the time where we have to return to some old style of relationship building, which is face to face, and find reasons to be face to face with your customers. And as we've always said, especially with IEPS, it's yes, we are in sales. We're a sales profession, but we're really consultants. We're really subject matter experts. We're really bringing a perspective to our clients across the industry. Not only people that we compete with, but people that we play with, we cooperate with. Tangential types of brands, and that's going to be very important to the government customers for the GovCon base, to actually bring that to them. So I would say, first and foremost, find reasons to be in front of your customers where you're consulting, where you're adding value, where you're talking about mission, where you're empathetic towards the things that they're going through, the pressures that they're under. And don't necessarily be there concerned on the forefront with the next contract vehicle, as much as delivering with a high level of effectiveness your current contracts, and checking back in with them probably more frequently, in terms of, let's go through, what I like to call reverse QBRs. We'll go back in and actually do a quarterly business review with customers to talk about how we're doing on support, how we're doing on service delivery, what's coming down the pipe, what are you seeing, and actually bring in some of the senior leaders from the companies as well. So it's not just the account executive or the sales manager, but the SVPs and the EVPs and the CEOs, to actually share that listening, and really get involved with what's important for them, without having that first and foremost thing is like, okay, we're here because we've got a pending contract action coming up. I would say that's never really going to go away, but that should not be the first focus with these customers right now.
So let's get a little deeper into that. That's a great bit of advice. Let's talk some specific things about how you can, as a sales professional, and I loved your idea there about bringing in the CEO, bringing in, other subject matter experts. How would you suggest that you do get to have these more in-person meetings? Now, some government agencies are requiring people come to the office, right? But one thing you mentioned, COVID, of course, even back as far as 9/11, security got very tough. It got very difficult, to go into government offices and just walk the halls. I remember in the early part of my career walking around the Pentagon, you know,
Yes, indeed,
just
without
walking
a
around the
badge.
Pentagon, and yeah,
Yeah,
you can't do that anymore.
no.
So, how would you tell people to specifically go about getting in front of people?
Well, there's a couple of ways. Of course, I think in the last year or 2 or 3 years, there's been a big emphasis on a lot of shows, and I'm seeing a lot more activity at a lot of government-sponsored types of shows. So be there, be present. But if you're going to the shows, it's the thing I never liked to do was booth duty.
Mm.
I did it because you have to do what everyone else is doing as well. But if you're going to be there, make that as a purpose to set up real meetings at these shows. So that's weeks in advance with your marketing team, with your inside sales team, with other folks that have influence, to set up some real static meetings, and get some real face-to-face time at these shows. A second thing I would really insist on, especially with strategic customer relationships, is set up at least quarterly, if not bi-monthly types of meetings where it's static. It's like, on the third Thursday, we're coming in at 8 o'clock, and we're gonna review or see if you can get invited. I know when I was doing a lot of work back in the days with FEMA, they would have a Friday meeting, and their strategic partners were invited to that meeting, and it was open air. And so the second thing is see if there's a way to get involved or start up static types of meetings, quarterly updates, and it's not really about the sale as much as about the state of the union, so to speak. And
Yeah.
then the third thing is a little bit more casual, and this is where relationships really kind of flourish. Um, when you can't, you said I loved it. We used to put on a coat and tie, and we could walk into the Pentagon, go into the commissary, eat whatever. It was crazy. Um, I like to do a lot of coffees. Busy people will make time in their schedule. I get a lot of coffees, especially downtown at like 07:30. So you can catch people if they're coming in early. You sit down for 15 minutes at a Starbucks. You have some conversation, and then they get to the rest of their day. They don't have to make room for you at 10 o'clock. Interrupt something. Lunches. Dinners are hard because now you're getting into people's personal time. Matter of fact, when I went out for quote unquote dinners, when I was on the road outside of Washington, D.C., I'd always insist that customers would hook up with us like at around 4:30 in the afternoon. So they get a chance to leave the office a little early and a little bit more relaxed atmosphere outside of the perimeter of the security gates, and then get home to their families by 5:30 or 6. I found that the dinners that started at 6:30 or 7 went to 10:30 or 11, and I was foggy the next day. And you don't get as much done as you do, like maybe in a cocktail type of conversation. So those three things: be really impactful at the shows. See if you can set up static meetings just for updates, and that's where you have a chance to invite in techies, executive management, and then see if you can get those coffees going early in the days. I find a lot of people find that's not intrusive to their work schedule.
I want to talk about two things you brought up, the concept of empathy and mission focus. So again, when we're talking to public sector, they're not about increasing profits. They're not about growing sales. It's about helping the customer, the agency achieve its mission. And we talk about this all the time on the Sales Game Changers podcast about, mission driven technology and things along those lines, if you will. So give some advice here to some of the sales professionals listening about what they can and shouldn't be talking to federal customers about. Right. It's like, we have a lot of people who are listening who are senior. And by the way, there's a little clicking sometimes. So if you're rattling paper or something, talk a little bit about and again, these are human beings that we're talking to. So you could probably talk about last night's game, but to get really focused, give some advice on the empathy, which basically means, putting yourself in their shoes and understanding what they're going through and the whole concept that the customer is mission focused.
Yeah. So look, mission focus and what we deal with on the defense industrial base or contractor base is not really a lot different. They're just different types of pressures. We have 90-day pressures to deliver revenue to our shareholders. Our government customers have maybe longer term, but mission oriented things that they have to deliver for their reviews and for basically national security or whatever it might be. So it's just important to start conversations where you're sensitive to what they do. They have hard jobs. They feel pressure. They want to deliver, not just for their bosses, but for their constituencies. And so you just have to just pay attention to that and start conversations there.
Yeah. I want to talk about the concept of adding value. And a lot of times, when things are a little bit challenging, people feel the urge to discount. And, kind of give us some of your insights. Is that even a worthwhile strategy? I mean, as we all know right now, again, we're doing today's interview in June of 2025. The government is pressuring industry, to provide the best possible costs that they could and things along those lines. But from a sales strategy, what does it mean to add value? You talk a little bit, I've talked to you before about, multi-year proposals, versus, giving customers discounts today, if you will. Talk a little bit about what are some of your thoughts on that right now?
Yeah, I think, look, government contracting officers wouldn't be doing their job if they didn't ask for, a look at how can we be doing this more efficiently? How can we be doing this more cost effectively? You guys are going to have to drop your price, right? One of the anecdotes I always like to use is I don't like lead with my chin in a fist fight. That's called discounting. You sometimes you do discount, sometimes you restructure contracts, but what you can certainly do when they have a need is, first of all, you have to go back and review the good decisions that they've made. What was it they were trying to accomplish? And again, on these reverse QBRs, how are we doing with specific milestones against those things that we're trying to get done? So yeah, so there are things you can do with your contracts. You can do a little. You can talk about loss leaders with your existing executive leadership. Rather than lose this, why don't we add some value? We've got X amount of dollars on this contract. Why don't we give additional services or additional hours without additional cost right now, with an understanding that we'll get well later on down the pipe. The concept there is, for me, if you're with your customers in tough times, and these are tough times because it's just uncertainty. People have, fear around what they don't know what's coming next. So if you're with your customers during what they perceive, what we perceive are tough times, they will be with you in the good times.
Hmm.
And I take a look at some people. One of the folks that really is a huge contributor to your program, an old friend of mine, especially women in technology. I look at Tamara Greenspan over at Oracle. She's been there for like 33 years. She's climbed the ranks from entry level job all the way up to senior vice president. I see her all the time in front of her customers.
Yeah.
And you don't survive that many years with the same company. I mean, Oracle has done. I'm an alumnus of
Hmm.
Oracle as well, going back into the day. I always loved working for Larry, but you don't survive being viable to a customer for that many years unless you're adding value. And believe me, if you're there for 33 plus years, you're going to have gone through a lot of different cycles, a lot of up and down cycles. But she is always in front of her customers. She has a trusted relationship with her customers, and she knows that they know that this is going to be a very long-term type of relationship, which is going to outlive the the ups and downs of the 90-day quarters.
No, that's a great point. And actually, I've spoken to Tamara about that many, many times. And for people who are listening, a lot of people who work for the government, again, we talked today with Paul Smith about, you know, reductions in forces and layoffs and people choosing to get their buyouts, if you will. But for the most part, you know, people who work for the government, they're there for decades, right? You know, they're there for the mission. They're there because, you know, they want to provide value to the citizenry, if you will. I'm kind of curious. So you've talked to, you know, if not tens of thousands, thousands of government officials, government customers. I'm just kind of curious, what do they want from sales professionals, from selling professionals, right? You know, it's like, what do they expect from the people listening to today's show, selling professionals in the B2B space? What do they want from you? Again, how do we make that relationship mutually beneficial by giving them what they need from you?
Yeah, well, another old friend of mine, I call him Pete the Greek. You may know Pete Saronis,
Of course, yeah.
who is Pete's, of course, running his own company right now, Dawson Bridges. But prior to that, he was a long-term chief of technology officers, chief information officer of a variety of agencies, most notably the energy department. And I got started in a relationship with Pete way back in the day when he was on the government side. And Pete will just say very abruptly, show up, you know, just show up. They want to be engaged with industry. They want to hear our ideas. They want to hear what we see that's going on in the marketplace. For example, today you have to have an AI story. You have to have an AI and tools type of story. Most technology companies I've talked with are actively involved in that, either on the infrastructure side, the tools side, or actually delivering, large language models that are specific to particular agencies. But Pete's admonition is, I want partners. I want folks that are subject matter experts that can help me gain perspective.
Yeah, that is a great answer. And I remember I interviewed CIO for DHS or something during the heyday of the pandemic. And I asked him that question. I said, you know, what do you want from the sales professionals? And he said, yeah, tell me how to work with your company. It's like, how do we get our customer service? How do we get support? How do we get, the contract, you know, um, agreements in place, whatever my updates and things along those lines. So, but also you got to be prepared. I'm just kind of curious. Last question here, and I'll tee it up here with whatever it is you want to close with. You're one of the most prepared guys that we've ever come across. Hence, again, you're our 2017 Lifetime Achievement recipient, and it was such an easy pick that year. When you were our selection. Give some advice for people listening on how to be prepared. What are some things that you do? Again, you mentioned AI. It's easy to use AI right now, but give us some of your advice for the sales, the younger sales or mid sales professionals. What should they be doing to truly be prepared to serve their customer?
So right now, this is the time to double down. This isn't the time to use excuse soup and say, look, if things are tough in the government, I don't have anything going on this quarter. Talk about your business plan with them. Go through your business plan with your customer. Review things that can be achieved and establish shared types of agreement on milestones to get to that final goal. Also, look, Doge is a real thing, and we'll see how it plays out over time. There's a lot every day. There's something new in the newspaper about it. If it's how far-reaching it's going to be or not, but most agencies that I've seen are being impacted by it in one way, shape, or form. As a sales professional at any level, you need to anticipate that conversation for a stop work, a T for C, a termination for convenience, which is like the almighty type of one saying, hey, look, we're just done. And be at the ready. I mean, ahead of time. Do all the work ahead of time to defend the original decisions that were made, and talk about the cost efficiencies. Talk about the transparency. Talk about how this is helping, protect government data. The whole cyber standpoint, and have that at the ready. If not at the ready, again, at the risk of redundancy, use that type of information when you're doing your quarterly static reviews with the customers. Tell them, this is what we've accomplished together over the last 90 days. Here's what we plan to do going forward. That's not necessarily about a purchase order. It's about, how are we delivering today, so that you're there in front of them. You are a real entity. You're building up trust over time. It's harder for them to fire you than to fire someone that doesn't show up,
Yeah,
except when it's, you know, 5 days before the end of the quarter and you need that contract action. It's very difficult to fire someone that is part of the mission. And
yeah,
just because we're contractors doesn't mean that we're not wildly important to that.
absolutely. And they want to be successful. I mean, they have a huge mission in most cases that they need to achieve. It's complicated to get it done. There's a lot of things coming at their way, like we've talked about today as well. So they want to make sure that if they're going to be spending time and investing in you, some cases for decades, that you're providing value for them to help them achieve the mission. All right, Paul Smith, it's great seeing you again. You've given us so many great ideas. You want to give us a final thought, something that people should do?
Yes.
Again, you've given us like 24 things that they should do. Give us a final thought, something people should do right now to be successful and taking their career to the next level.
Well, I'm a faith-based type of guy. I'm a card-carrying Catholic, and I have respect for all faiths. We all get inspiration from other areas, but I'm sitting in church just yesterday, and one of the readings was from St. Paul to the Corinthians. So it's wild. It's like almost I was being spoken to, and it talks about be boastful about your afflictions or your challenges, because that builds endurance, and endurance builds character, and character over time builds, success and hope is a good thing. So in any career, if you're 5 years in, if you're 10 years in, if you're 30 years in, or 40 some plus years like myself, you're going to go through tough times. So you just have to build up, a thick skin,
Mm.
and just be on the proactive side of this and not on the reactive side of this, and go out there and build endurance and build your character, builds hope over time, and just deal with that, as some 12 steps programs will say, one day at a time.
One day at a time. All right. Once again, I want to thank Paul Smith. Again, the 2017 Institute for Effective Professional Selling Lifetime Achievement Award for all the great ideas that you've shared today. My name is Fred Diamond, and this is the Sales Game Changers podcast.